Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Replay Show. I am your host, Cory Camp, and I'm excited today to have with me one of my favorite coaches that I've had the privilege of working with here at Sibme, Kim Blumke. Kim comes to us from a regional service center. If those are familiar to you, they're called many different things in different states. But she has really shifted her regional coaching work, where she serves several schools across a pretty broad region, into virtual and even some, blended work that she does. So I'm super excited for her to come with us today and share a little bit of her do this, not that, when it comes to virtual coaching and starting that in your own organization, whether that's a campus or a broader region or even statewide. If you're a consultant, I think there's a lot we can learn from Kim. So welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So tell everyone just a little bit about yourself and kind of your coaching background before we dive into our topic for today.
Okay. I have been a literacy coach at Sheboygan Otsego Presqu'île Educational Service District. We call that COPESD.
That's
for,
right.
I think about 6 years. Before that, I was an elementary teacher, and I absolutely loved what I did. But now that I'm working in a coaching role, I can't imagine doing anything differently. I really enjoy working with adults. And I have 4 boys, ages 15 to 22, and a wonderful husband. And we live in the Upper Peninsula of Lower Michigan.
I love that. Yeah, you're not too far from me. I mean, we're kind of side by side, our states. I'm in Ohio. And yeah, so I am really excited to have you on just to talk a little bit about virtual coaching, because I know that you and your team, there's another Kim on your team, were really thoughtful as you thought about how you were going to shift your services to more virtual. And we'll talk a little bit in a minute about why that is. But I do want folks to know that you actually, this was a vision of yours and your departments before we really came into COVID. And so virtual coaching has become a hotter topic in the past year and a half, 2 years, because of the limitations and the safety precautions we have to make because of COVID-19. But you guys were already on this track. So it actually turned out to be really beneficial because you already had some of that legwork done and you've got a lot of lessons learned that you're going to share with us. But tell us why first you and your team decided that you wanted to add virtual coaching in as a cycle option in your coaching services.
Sure. So we are responsible for helping teachers implement what Michigan calls the Literacy Essentials. But we cover over 2,000 square miles in 13 elementary schools. And I was the only coach for 4 years. So really, it was impossible for me to meet with all of the teachers and do true coaching. So instead, I was doing professional learning sessions for teachers, but I knew that coaching would be more effective. So I started thinking about how I might do that and started researching virtual coaching. And what I found was that research stated that virtual coaching could be just as effective or possibly even more effective than face-to-face coaching, which really excited me. So I talked to my supervisor, Rich, and he was on board and had been thinking along those same lines. So I researched a bunch of different platforms, and it wasn't long before we landed on Sibme. And it's just been, since then, it's been an amazing experience. What we've been doing now, there is no way that it would have been feasible if we were to try to do face-to-face coaching with the amount of space that we have to cover in our ESD. Further, one of the biggest things that I love about our virtual coaching cycle is the asynchronous part. As a coach, I love that I'm able to really take a moment and reflect myself on feedback that I give to coaches and resources that I might want to share. Whereas when I tried to do it face-to-face, I sort of felt like I was on the spot. So being virtual allows me, I think, to be a better coach.
Yeah, and I know that kind of being on the spot, I feel like that is kind of a mutual feeling for both the individual being coached. We're a little bit on the spot, right? I just came in, I observed your lesson, and now let's talk a little bit about how you felt about that as they're still kind of trying to process that or even remember what happened when you were in there because that was a little anxiety ridden, right, for
Sure.
them. But then also, yeah, for us as coaches, being able to be able to quickly shift from an observation right into a debriefing, if that's possible, or just kind of collect our thoughts or remember what happened in the week that it's been since I was with that teacher last, and now we're finally sitting down for a debriefing. I know my regional work sometimes was spaced further out than I wanted it to be. So I love that. So then you all have, or you've kind of created these 5 tips, and we're going to start with number 5 and kind of work our way all the way down to number 1. And these are in the notes and takeaways for this episode. So if you pre-registered for this episode, you're going to get these right into your inbox. If not, you can find them always free and downloadable at learn.sibme.com in our Coach Replay notes and takeaways section. So do this is what we're going to talk a little bit about. And these are the 5 do this. So starting with number 5, understand that principals are usually more gung-ho than teachers. Tell me a little bit more about this.
So what we found is that when we contacted principals, they were super gung-ho. They wanted to mandate that all of their teachers do it. They were super excited about it, which was fantastic. But we knew that research shows that teachers, it should be optional for teachers to be a part of the coaching program. And when we contacted teachers, not everybody was on board like the principals were. So we explained to the coaches that, we showed the research, showed them what it said, and they agreed that it could be optional. So we found that while the principals are super gung-ho, we can't assume that all teachers are going to be super excited to be recorded. So what we try to do is just really share the information with the teachers. It's helpful to meet with them to explain the program in a little bit more detail, allow them to ask questions, and then as we continue on and get more people that have been a part of the program, more and more teachers are willing to be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Yeah, the enthusiasm. I usually talk about coaching with video, whether that's virtual or even just video enhanced in-person coaching, kind of like this awkward hug, right? Where we're the one going in for that hug and we're all in, and the person kind of receiving that hug is just kind of, arms kind of stiff to the side, not quite sure how they're going to get out of it. And now they're stuck in it. They're not always as excited or enthusiastic as we or other leaders might be. And coaching is so important, whether you're doing it virtually with or without video. It's important for those, that feeling of the kind of that mutual beneficial experience, right?
Definitely.
The fact that the teacher gets to volunteer or has some voice and choice in that coaching relationship, maybe when it starts or how that goes or what it's focusing on, and rather than just being voluntold, right? It doesn't feel good when somebody says maybe that you need help. That can kind of make it feel like we're not doing the best that we could in our classroom, or what we're doing is not good enough. Sometimes that's the case, right? Our work is high stakes, but it really feels so much better on both ends if it's a choice. So yep. I love that. And I think informing them as to why you are using the virtual coaching as a strategy, as an approach in the coaching, and the benefits of that, I think that's a really smart thing to do. So let's shift on to number 4, which is acknowledging that recording and reflection is a new practice for some. So teachers are going to be nervous, right? Recording themselves. We say here all the time that it's 100% one of the best ways to be able to reflect on your practice and grow as a professional, but 100% the most uncomfortable way. So how do you overcome this in your coaching?
So this actually has to do with you, Cory. When we were first working together to start our virtual coaching program, you had told me, don't make a big deal about recording. If you dwell on it, it may confirm what people are already thinking. So instead, what I try to do is really, I just quickly acknowledge that it can be a challenge at the beginning, but that you will soon get over it. And then really, once we don't focus on it anymore, we just kind of get going, and teachers really focus more on what really matters. Also, I use video myself. I kind of feel like if I put myself out there as being vulnerable as well, then they kind of see that I'm in a similar situation as them. I share with them that my coaching partner and I watch each other's coaching conversations with teacher permission. And I just think that if they see that we are doing the work as well, that we feel it's important enough to do it ourselves, then they are more willing to do it as well and feel a little bit more comfortable about it. And if you just don't focus on it, you acknowledge it and then move on to more important things, it seems to work.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I found, and this is something I found in my work, even before I was fully virtually coaching, but I wanted to use video in coaching because of the power of that reflection, or even the flexibility it provided for me to be able to be in a teacher's classroom and observe them without having to physically be there. So I wanted to use video. But even in the beginning, it seems like we almost can project our own fears or worries about the resistance that might happen when we mention recording onto that person or in that conversation. And we almost sometimes will talk them out of it by, as we talk about how scary, like we know it's going to be really scary and it's really vulnerable and it's the most uncomfortable thing ever. You know, we kind of put all of those cons out there and they're kind of going, yeah, no, this sounds horrible. No, I don't want to do that with you. But especially if we are wanting to virtually coach, whether it's a portion of our coaching cycle that needs to be virtual for one reason or another, or we're really looking at doing this as a full-time kind of practice or with some of our teachers, right? This virtual coaching is a really great way to if you are a campus or a district or, you know, a regional coach, to kind of provide some tiered support. Your heavier coaching might happen more in person. You're spending more time in that teacher's classroom. But if you have some virtual coaching ability and have that down, you can make yourself more accessible to other teachers without having to physically be in that room, another room during the day or during the week. But if we are virtual coaching is not just let's meet on Zoom and have a quick conversation. It's not just the conversation part of things. It's also still being able to co-plan and debrief around data and be able to see instruction so you can best facilitate that coaching conversation and support reflection and guide their noticing. And so video really is an essential part of the virtual work, right? So you've got to have some great ways to kind of overcome that anxiety. I think I also love that you lead with a learning mindset and a vulnerability, right? By saying, I use video for my own practice, even outside of the classroom. And, you know, being able to talk about how powerful that is, but also it might make you a little nervous, but it really is much more beneficial.
Right. And what we find is that while teachers may be pretty hesitant at first, if we can just get them in to try it, it hardly takes any time at all for them to really see the value in it. It's just getting them to try it that first time that's right. That we really need to, you know, hook them and show them what it can really do for them.
Yeah. And sometimes that means, you know, going in and even offering to record for them if the technology makes them really nervous, or letting them record and not share that first video, just, you know, giving them some really good guiding questions or some specific things that they might look for as far as success criteria, and letting them watch it on their own. It's a totally different conversation when someone's seen themselves on video doing their job than if they're just kind of trying to remember off memory. So
right. And I think that the Sibme, the workspace, the private workspace is perfect for that, because, you know, we share with everybody that you can record whatever you want and it goes directly to your workspace. Nobody else can see it. You know, you don't have to share anything that you don't want to share. And I think that helps a lot in this situation.
Yeah, the privacy and the security of that footage, especially if we've got students in that, is really, really important. So
Yep.
making sure you've got a platform like Sibme that does that.
Yep.
So let's talk about number 3 on your do this, not that. So number 3, you say, let teachers decide on the areas they want to improve rather than telling them what they need to work on. And
Yep.
sometimes I know in our work, right, we're working more of kind of coming in as a consultant coach. We are told, hey, this teacher really, I'd like to see these changes in their classroom, or I feel like they need support here. So how do you deal with that? Or maybe a teacher doesn't know. They say, I don't know, you're the coach. Tell me what I need to improve. How do you deal with that?
Sure. Well, first of all, I really feel that if we tell teachers what they have to work on, it can weaken our partnership, and they won't feel that ownership they really need to make a difference or impact their instruction. So when possible, I think it's great to let the teachers be in the driver's seat of their own instruction. I have been trained in cognitive coaching, which that has helped me a ton since I started virtual coaching, because it helps me to use certain questions to help people get to like root causes of what's happening in their instruction. And another thing I like to do is I like to use the question of, if your lesson didn't go as well as you had hoped, what got in the way? And just asking that can really help teachers kind of pinpoint, okay, this is an area that I want to work on. But I feel like if teachers have the freedom to address the parts of the instruction that they want to address, then they're going to be much more engaged in the coaching. If they're invested, they're going to get so much more out of it, I think.
Yeah, it really is about ownership. And we know that this is important for our student aged learners, our young learners, and it's also important for our adults. No matter how many years they've been in the classroom or been in their role, when it comes to coaching, you've got to have a goal to focus your coaching. Otherwise, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. You're just kind of all over the place and don't really feel like you make much progress. But that goal really has to be driven by the learner, right? They've got to feel compelled by that, connected to it, like it's going to make a difference. Otherwise, it might make a short-term change, but not really a long-term impact.
Sure. And sometimes we have new teachers that really aren't sure, then we can certainly guide them in finding areas that they want to address.
Yeah, definitely. I find a good protocol. Gym Night's got some great protocols on watching your students and watching yourself. And it allows you not to only look for things like engagement or, the questioning or the lesson structure was appropriate, but also rate that on a scale of 1 to 7. And so that way they can kind of start to rate things, and then they can kind of use the data to guide where they might want to focus in that.
Sure.
So your second one, I love because there's a little bit of this and that in there, right? So you say, be flexible. That's your do this on your chart. But then your don't do this is don't be too flexible. So tell us, where's that line? And what do you mean by being too flexible?
So I learned this the hard way. It's really important to be flexible with teachers, especially right now. As there's, some places maybe in quarantine or closings. So we need to be really flexible to meet the teacher's needs. But if we're too flexible, we found that we get off track. So we had planned our program, like you said, before COVID even hit. But as we rolled it out during COVID and during closings, and we really try to make sure that we are aware and understanding of the challenges and the all of the issues that teachers are dealing with. We try to be super patient and supportive. But what we found was that we can't do that too much, because if we don't have deadlines and dates on the calendar, and if we just say something like, well, respond when you have a chance, or do your next recording when you have time, then it doesn't happen, because teachers have so much going on. So we found that it's better to keep those dates on the calendar, keep engaged with those teachers and encourage them to keep moving forward. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't adjust dates. If something happens in the classroom or something happens with the teacher and they need to adjust the date, we certainly do that. But then we put a new date on, because if we don't, it's too easy with with how busy teachers are for that to be put on the back burner.
Yeah, I think there's, we're, especially in leadership, we're constantly kind of dancing this line between, managing accountability and ownership for that accountability, but also that compassion, that caring, that understanding of all the things that everybody has on their plate. And it might seem easier in virtual coaching to be flexible, but I think it's also easier to be too flexible, right? Because it's not like you were already on your way to the campus, driving all the way across the region to meet them and they need to cancel. It's not a big inconvenience, right, to cancel a Zoom meeting.
Right.
But it does hinder progress. So being able just to come together, I like to talk with teachers about what's getting in the way, and maybe we need to adjust our plan. So maybe both of us had unrealistic expectations of what we could accomplish in a week or in 2 weeks, and really kind of looking at everything that's on their plate and still focusing on that progress, but maybe taking smaller steps or prioritizing our time a little bit better. So,
right. And it really depends on each teacher too.
It does.
For sure.
It does. Yeah, I think, being clear is kind. We hear Brene Brown say that. And I think that's important too, when you talk about kind of your working relationship and honoring each other's time and honoring the partnership and the goal of that partnership as well.
Right. And we really strive to be supportive. We don't want this to be, a stress for teachers. We want to be helpful. We want to be supportive. We want them to leave saying, okay, yes, that took us a little bit of time, but it was so worth it.
Yeah, definitely. So we're down to number 1 on your do this, not that list for virtual coaching startups. Your do this is connect the recording and reflection to the work that is already being done, not making that recording and reflection an initiative. Why is this your number 1? And can you give me an example of what you mean by this?
Sure. So we want reflection and recording to be seen as a tool to get better, not as something that's like the flavor of the month or a short-term professional learning experience. And so often I think the word initiative has a bad connotation. It's often seen, initiatives I think sometimes seem really unconnected and short-term to teachers. And we want them to see that really this is all about reflection and getting better. And reflection can impact all areas of academics and beyond. So, we want, it doesn't matter if teachers are working on math or literacy or behavior or student relationships. All of those things can be positively impacted by recording and then reflecting on what teachers see. So an example could be, so maybe a school is working on higher level questioning. So by using video, this is a really effective and efficient way to improve. They are still planning the lesson, they're still teaching the lesson, but what they're doing is they're pressing that record button, and then they are reflecting as they watch the lesson, and really seeing what happened and seeing what's happening with their students and what their instruction is looking like, instead of relying on their own memory or their perception of what something happened. And I just wanted to add that I watched a webinar, Sibme webinar not too long ago. It was with Dr. Tanya Cory.
Yes.
And what she said impacted me so much. What she said, something like, video reflection is not just another thing, it's the thing. And so then I took that a little bit further. And what I tell people that I work with is video reflection is not another thing, it's the thing that we need to improve and to make a difference. And I love that, video reflection is what we need to do to improve and make a difference. And I just think that really kind of sums it up, that it can be used for anything.
Yeah. Pete Hall and Elisa Simmerall, there's some of my favorite authors around the work of reflection, teacher reflection in education, and how as leaders we can build that. And they're known for saying that, self-reflection is a transcendent skill, right? It's kind of like teach a man to fish as opposed to, giving him a fish. It really can span across whatever my next career stage is, the next lesson I teach, the next grade level or classroom or group of students. If I can have effective ways to reflect, deep reflection, and I'm doing that frequently, it's what makes a difference between a mediocre practitioner and a master, right? Those masters not just have more hours of doing it, but they're reflective and they're refining all the way along the way. And you can't do that without reflection. So yeah, that's so important. And it really should be connected to the work. It's not just about, I'm going to come in and observe you. Sometimes when I'm doing my face-to-face coaching, I just come in because it's that day that I'm planning on being there. Doesn't feel as connected being in the classroom to the specific thing we're looking for. Maybe even that day they're not doing that particular activity or strategy that we're focusing on. And so then why am I there? When video can be the thing that either we're looking at it through a specific lens, like higher level questioning or rigor or engagement, or we're looking to use that to be able to capture it when the coach is not able to come by. But more important than the coach seeing that video is the teacher seeing that video. So really is really powerful.
Right. And what we hope is that teachers continue that when we're done with our cycle with them. And the feedback that we get is that they get so much from that and they do want to continue.
Yeah. And then you're building capacity, right? My goal when I was a special education teacher was to work myself out of a job. And the same is true for my coaching and leadership work. I want to build capacity with the people that I'm working with, not just solve an immediate problem with them. So I love that. So you have been doing a lot around, virtual coaching since you began this. What was it? Almost 2 years ago now. Gosh, I feel like it's been longer than that, but shorter than that. It's like, how can it already be 2 years? And how is it already 2 years? And you've written quite a few articles. We're going to include those in the notes and takeaways as well, so folks can kind of follow your work. But I'm really curious, where do you see yourself going with this work in the future?
So I really feel like my work with video reflection and collaboration has been the most impactful work that I've ever done in my career. And I've been in the field of education for over 30 years. So I think that's saying a lot that, here I am towards, the end of my career. And it's just amazing what I see video reflection can do. Since partnering with Sibme, I have been able to present at national or really worldwide conferences. I've been able to write a couple of articles and collaborate with people across the United States, which has been amazing. I met Jim Thompson during the Sibme Summit, who is the co-author of A Quick Guide to Video Coaching. And he's kind of taken me under his wing a little bit. And he has been really encouraging me to do some more writing, which I really want to do, but I haven't really taken the time to really focus on that yet. But he is an amazing resource that I've gotten just through this work. And one thing that I'm really excited about is I'm currently working with a district around video reflection and peer collaboration. And I really feel like this is something that all districts could do, and it would be beneficial for all districts. I really enjoy supporting this kind of work because I feel so strongly that this is the way we need to go to make a positive difference in our instruction and student learning. Lastly, we are just starting to roll out a coach the coach structure within our ESD. So that's something new that we are working on right now.
That's so exciting. And I feel the same way that you do. I started using video in my own practice in the classroom. I want to say it was kind of 13 years ago now. And then a year later, I was in leadership and decided that was definitely something other teachers needed a chance to experience. And it took a while before I found a great platform that allowed me to do that. But I feel the same way. It just completely changed my whole idea around learning for students and adults and how we can make that impact. And I feel like the work I do really does make long-term changes for people and for students. And it really is that transformational piece. If we can, again, build the capacity for other folks to be able to reflect and do so frequently and meaningfully, not just with a coach, but with themselves, with their colleagues and peers, that really is that big piece. It leads us very much into collective efficacy, which we know is the number one thing within the school's control that can make the biggest impact on achievement and kind of closing those gaps. And so video really is a big part of that, whether you're, again, virtual coaching or not. So I hope, folks, that you were able to take some of these things on Kim's Do This, Not That list and apply it, whether you are looking at doing virtual coaching yourself, or you've started virtual coaching, or even if you're just planning on enhancing your work with some video to support reflection, to support the flexibility and efficiency of your work and the impact of your work. There's something in this episode for everybody. So, Kim, thank you so much for coming and sharing a little bit about your lessons learned. I know we'll have you back on the show for sure. And I'm sure we're going to have you presenting again at the Better Together Summit this summer. So we'll share more information about that. But
thanks so much. I was really happy to be here. And also, if anyone ever wants to contact me, I love talking about the use of video reflection. So they can certainly email me, and I would be happy to meet with them.
Yeah, we've got all of her information on the notes and takeaways for this episode. So you guys, don't miss out on future interviews and episodes around leadership and coaching, whether it's with video or without. That's what this show is all about. So be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our Coach Replay channel and podcast, and anywhere that you want to go ahead and tune in, because we come live every week. And we'll see you all again next week. So thanks again, Kim, for joining us.
Thank you.